Hello, and thanks for tuning in. The issue of Islamic integration into Western civilization is a very, very complicated one. It's full of nuance, it's full of political debate, social debate, and it's multifaceted. I believe, my personal belief, is that Islam as a religion is unable to integrate itself into Western democracies. There are various reasons why it can't fit in my opinion, into Western democracies. And I'm going to try and explore some of that today. Now, this debate here could be viewed as, in the modern days, something like Islamophobic. And I'll state right at the outset that that's not a term that I recognise. The reason I don't recognise it is because it's a silly term. It means that I have an irrational fear of Islam. I don't have an irrational fear of Islam. I just don't think Islam and the West will work together. That's it. I've known many Muslims in my professional life, and I've found them all to be good people. Mostly. Just like everybody else. Just like I've found people from England to be mostly okay. Just like I've found everyone to be mostly okay. The mix is about the same. There's no difference in that. However, the term Islamophobic is essentially used to shut down debate. It's meant to prevent us from talking about things. It's meant to just say to a person who wants to discuss these issues, just shut up about it. Now, to me, there's a difference between Islam and the people that adhere to the tenets of Islam, because those people are people, whereas a religion is a set of ideas. So as a set of ideas, when taken in its totality, I don't agree with a lot of religions. That's why I'm not religious. I'm more closely drawn to Christianity because I'm from England, and that's a Christian country essentially, or is at the moment. But certainly a religion is just a set of ideas. That's all it is. And whether or not you subscribe to those set of ideas would be whether or not you would subscribe to that religion. And my personal opinion is that Islam is full of bad ideas. That's not to say that people that have the Islamic faith are full of bad ideas, because they're people, and what needs to be differentiated here is the difference between the religion and the people. So there are people who adhere to Islam, but Islam itself, in its totality, is a set of ideas, and it's not a set of ideas that I subscribe to. That needs to be stated at the outset. However, what I'm going to do here is make a case. And I'm going to try, and as I have done in some previous videos, I'm going to try and steelman the argument for myself in an attempt to get to the absolute truth. Now, to start with is the topic of identity and values. So there is often a clash between values, the secular norms that we hold in Western civilizations, and religious beliefs practiced by Muslims. There's a range of issues, not just from religion and public life, gender roles, all these traditional practices. These can all create tensions. I mean, we just have to look at debates, particularly in places in Europe where perhaps the hijab has been outlawed or banned, for want of a better word. Religious schools, perceptions being different in normal everyday life. These are the issues between identity and values, and there is always going to be a clash there. Now, you could argue that Muslims should assimilate into Western society and the onus is on them. Other people, perhaps from the left of politics, argue that it's our role to accept Muslims and their identities into our multicultural society. However, as I've already addressed in previous videos, multiculturalism is by and large a failed experiment, in my opinion. And so it's not really up to us to integrate with Islam. It's up to Islam to integrate with our Western culture in whatever country they are. After all, if you were to take the example of myself moving to another country, so let's say I was to move to a country, we'll just pick a random one, Thailand. So I moved to Thailand. When I would move there, I would go to that country. If I found that country attractive, I would look around and I would say, hey, this seems like a nice country to be in. And I would observe the local practices and by and large I would fit in. I don't think that's too far a stretch for people coming to this country or people coming into Europe to fit in with the already adopted cultures and general values across the piece. So on the topic of assimilation, I do believe that it's on other cultures who come to Britain to assimilate into the existing culture. It's not on the population, if you like, the native population of any country to change and adopt the attitudes of other cultures coming in, as we recently saw in a recent interview with a Saudi representative about the World Cup. The man just laughed and said, well, that's our culture, get on with it. And I believe it was Nick Ferrari doing the interview saying, I know, but surely you're going to allow people to have a bit of a drink before the game. And to which the man said, no, that's our culture, I like it, I lump it. And this is the feeling throughout the whole of the world. But there has been this cultural infection that the West has, where we believe that we all always have to navel gaze and hand wring and wonder if we're doing the right thing. And in that, we place our own culture in jeopardy when we don't know who we are. Now, there are economic and social disparities which can lead also to a lack of integration and cohesion. And this is a fair point. Generally, immigrants will find it in whatever form, whichever country that is, they will find it difficult in terms of employment. There's a language barrier, there's a social barrier, and there's always a little bit of social exclusion. And economic marginalisation leads to being disenfranchised, leads to social tensions. There's also issues, access to education and opportunities. However, whilst all of that is true, let's say, again, we'll use an example. I was to move to another country. So let's say I was to move to India. What would my employment opportunities look like? Well, they wouldn't look very good. So in my considering whether I should move to India, one of the first things that I would have to consider would be, can I get a job when I'm there? How am I going to make some money? And I would pretty quickly work out that the case is that I wouldn't move there because my employment opportunities would be very bad. Now, no doubt, moving on to racism and prejudice, no doubt that there are a large number of people, as in any society, generally speaking, it hovers around 10%, people who believe that their skin colour makes them superior to another person. There is always going to be a certain amount of people in any society who believe that. And that is a challenge in terms of integration for all different types of people, not necessarily what we're talking about here, Islam, but all sorts of people from all around the world. But of course, that also exists in every other country. I was recently looking at Japan. Japan has a very low black population, and it's for these reasons. And that's open and out in the open, mainly. But there are, in terms of these social cohesion issues, mixed within that is the generational tensions that happen between the youth. You've got second, third generation Muslims in Western countries. They do face a unique set of challenges. In essence, they're caught between the cultures. Their parents might be more hardline, and they might want them to appear to be more in line with the old ways, whereas young people tend to be more off the wall. They're not going to listen to their parents in totality, and it's this that would be the hope for the future of Islamic integration in the West. However, it does seem like there is a large proportion, perhaps they're a minority, I don't know, of younger Muslims who actually adhere to the strict guidelines of their religion. So in terms of the second, third generation argument, that doesn't appear to be playing out. There's also, of course, in addition to these, the youth and identity crisis part, there's also ghettoization. So in a lot of Western countries, Muslim communities have become socially and economically segregated from broader society. And this leads to a lack of community engagement, which leads to radicalization and extremism. So all of these things, this pot of issues that we've got here, don't go anywhere that's going to be positive for social cohesion. Now that we've covered the social elements to this and the difficulties in assimilating in new cultures, which everyone from all cultures going to another culture would face, we get to the nub of the issue. The issues previously that I've discussed there are difficulties, but they're not insurmountable. All of these integration issues are experienced by every culture trying to integrate. But does Islam have a particular set of problems at a fundamental level that would prevent it from integrating specifically into Western democracies? Well, to start with, there's the concept of Sharia law, or Sharia law, or however it's meant to be pronounced. Now, essentially, the belief in Sharia law is that law is higher than the legal system in whichever country it's in. So right away, you've got an issue there to do with what's right, what's wrong. What's the actual law? What law am I abiding to? So the religion of Islam doesn't recognize the law courts of whichever country it's in. They will recognize it in a societal way, but in essence, when you dig under the surface, people who believe in Islam believe in Sharia law. So they believe that to be the highest law available, and you'll see this play out, for instance, in Muslim divorce, where there's these courts happen behind the scenes. Nobody really knows. Nobody really knows how many Sharia courts there are in the UK. But the very concept that there's a subset of court stuff happening, a legal system happening under our legal system, or perhaps how people hold it above our legal system, is quite staggering. And it's actually incredible that the state of any country is quite happy having a sub-legal system happening within its own purview. It's quite a thing when you actually stand back and think of it. And in addition to that, there's also the political system. Now, politics doesn't really play a part in Islam because it's relatively straightforward. There is no political debate because it's already been worked out. It's in the book. And so if it's in the book, what's there to debate about? It's not like you can come out with a debate and say, oh, well, perhaps we should debate this about civic life or this about the legal part of stuff. To which the answer to that would be, it's in the book. We don't need to debate it. Added to that is the question of the secular nature of our society and how Islam cannot integrate into that, because Islam clearly states that Islam is the final solution to all religions. There can be no other religions. It's Islam. This is what it is. And the book tells the proponents of the faith this. In fact, if you actually ask Muslims, they will tell you this. They will say, oh yeah, this is number one. This is how it has to be. This is what we want. So primarily amongst all of this, you've got justice system, political system, faith system. You've even got systems for things like what we're going to eat. There's a specific food system, if you like. In short, there is a multitude of these types of systems that are going on. Not forgetting, of course, of the fact that Muslims, by and large, I have met Muslims that do drink alcohol, but most of the time they don't. And so you've got all of these things which are at loggerheads with traditional, not just Western culture, but British culture. You've also, of course, got the issue of Judaism within Islam. Now, there are issues stretching back, I believe, and I'm not a religious person, but all the way back through the centuries. Islam has had a problem with Judaism. And there doesn't seem to be any change in that, any modern day change. When you look at the news, when you see, the Israel-Palestine debate thing, these issues just go on and on. Now, the topic of Islamic religious leaders is an interesting one, because in a way, the West has its own version of that, and that's the intellectual, the public intellectual, those people who you see the talking heads on television, the people who will talk about the ideas, belief systems of the society that we live in and engage in debate as to where society should go. And these thought leaders, these intellectuals, have always existed in society. There seems to be, and I have seen a few of these, but there seems to be a gap between the intellectuals in any Western society and the Muslim religious leaders, because these religious leaders are held in high esteem by all Muslim societies, and that's their culture, so they can choose to do that if they wish to. However, there is a distinct lack of debate coming from Islamic leaders, particularly in this country. They don't seem to want to engage in any debate about how we are going to set about this issue of social cohesion, how we are going to make sure that everything's going to be all right. Now, there is the Muslim Council of Great Britain, or Britain, I believe it's called. However, they seem to represent outrage. They represent the feeling that we're going to tell you how we've been slighted. We're going to tell you how we've been wronged, and we're going to tell you what you need to do. So on these types of issues, the Islamic thought leaders don't appear to want to engage in a debate which will be give and take, which is, thank you for accepting us into your country and your culture, and what we're going to do is have a discussion with you about how we're going to integrate. And this is the nub of the issue. As a religion, and again, I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about the religion of Islam. The religion of Islam is not able to integrate with any different set of secular ideologies or beliefs. It's not able to do it. It's not able to fit in with democracy. It's not able to fit in with a different justice system. It's not able to fit in with most aspects of Western life. Quite simply, because it's unable to. The followers of Islam adhere to the book, and that's important to them, and that's fine. You can follow any faith you want. Go ahead and follow that faith if that's the faith that you wish to follow. Again, we're not talking about people. We're talking about the belief structure, the beliefs encoded in the book, the holy book that Muslims adhere to. And so, really, at its heart, on a philosophical level, the religion of Islam itself is not able to integrate with Western civilizations or democracies. So going forward, what have we got? What's going to happen? Well, on the one side, we've got a religious belief that is unshakable in its belief in itself, namely Islam. So you've got the solid brick wall of Islam meeting the majority of the people in this country. And that clash, unfortunately, for the people of this country, unfortunately for everyone, not just people that believe in Islam, but people that believe in everything. Unfortunately, these issues are going to keep going. And as the population of Muslims increases, and thereby the population of people who believe in the religion of Islam increases, these issues are just going to increase. And it's going to get worse, unfortunately, until either the Islamic leaders, the thought leaders, can step up to the plate and try and discuss social cohesion without the outrage associated with people like the Muslim Council of Britain. But you just get the feeling that this isn't going to happen, and you get the feeling again that society just stands back and watch this all play out. This isn't going anywhere good. And I think we all know that. Sorry to say. Anyway, thanks for your time. All the best.